Okay, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for being here. I hope you, from now to the end of the semester, you enjoy this workshop. Of course, you should know that this workshop is about web development. We're going to teach you from this session till the end of the semester how to build your own website. So if you have a cool idea that wants to bring your life online, if you want to make this the next $1 million website, it starts here. So, just one comment before I give the lecture to Muhammad and Yusuf Ahad. They will be with you till the end of the semester. That this workshop needs a bit of programming experience. Of course, some of you or most of you don't have that. So what we're going to do about that is that 2 weeks before any session that needs a bit of programming experience, we're going to give some helping sessions for people who don't know how to code. Okay, so before each and every session that needs a little bit of coding, before that session, 1 week or 2 weeks or so, we're going to give an extra session to tell you how to do stuff. Okay, all's fine by that. So we will announce the dates of the session that will help you throughout the workshop. And before the actual thing starts 1 or 2 weeks.
Just as a clarification, I just want to know how many people need help with programming. Or
who here wrote code before? Raise your hand.
Who knows functions, classes? And you can even ignore classes in this. I want to know
who wrote code.
Who wrote code?
Okay, that's good. So the rest of you, don't worry about it. We're going to give sessions about how to write code, start with programming, basics of programming, so you don't get left behind in this. Okay, perfect. Any questions? Okay, perfect.
Okay. Starting from today at 5 p.m. will be the first session. The presenter for this session will be Yusuf Ahad. He will be with you for the first 3 to 4 sessions. And what are we going to discuss? What's the time plan? Why would you be interested in web development in the first place? What experiences will you get out of it? What are the futures? What is the future for web development? How can you branch off from this? All of these questions will be addressed in today's lecture. First off, what is web development? It's a very broad term used to describe anything that exists on the internet. People normally develop for various aspects in web development. We have things like, it involves things like design, web design, which is not technical, it's just how you want the website to look, the design, the layout, the colors, the contrast, and so on and so forth. It involves things like security. Of course, you want to integrate security into your website. You don't want the website to be easily hackable by anyone. It will involve things like the development, the coding itself, writing the code for the website. Web development is involved in basically 2 main stages. The front-end development and the back-end development. Now, what is the difference between both of them? What is the difference between front-end development and back-end development? Front-end is more involved with what you get on the browser. If you open your computer, open up the internet and search Google or Facebook or whatever, the interface you see in front of you is basically what integrates the front end. Now, what about the data that appears in the website itself? How does it come in figure in front of you in the browser? It certainly isn't stored on your computer. The data comes from the back end. What happens is the browser gets this information from the web server or the internet. Through the internet, from the web server, it gets the data relevant to your website. Let's take an example. Facebook, for example. How does it store your data, your information? The date of birth, age, interests, so on and so forth, your posts, everything, your comments. When you open your browser and open Facebook, you clearly find everything over there. But it's not stored on your computer. The data is mainly stored in a database or a housing for the data on the web server in the back end. And the code that you write in the back end is what retrieves this data based on what you want to see. If you click on your name, for example, on Facebook, and open your personal page, it will send some sort of request to retrieve this data from the back end, from the server, and bring it to the browser so that you can see it in front of you. Now, this is the only main distinction that I will start off with in this session, since we're not going to go technical in the assembly. So you need to know the difference between front end and back end. Okay? Yes. Now, why would you learn web development? Basically, web development is what has become the new meta. It's the shift in the market now. People want more web applications. They're easily reachable to the customers. They're easy to maintain, write code for, and they're very user-friendly. They don't require space on your computer. As a developer, you will make a lot of money out of it. You are wanted by the market. Companies want to hire people who can finish and do web applications. It introduces concepts into new fields. Now, what this means is, when you learn with us web development, you're not just going to learn everything concerning web development. It's not just this. You will be introduced to new concepts that will be used in other fields. For example, while the front end might be tailored for computer applications, for example, the back end itself, which retrieves the data, which gets whatever is relevant to you on the front end on the computer, can be also used or written to configure the front end of a mobile application, for example. It's the same thing, applying the same concepts in a different area, in a different field. The concepts that we're going to learn about in the back end can involve things like the dry principle. Dry principle is basically don't repeat yourself. You will write code only once, and you will maintain it in this particular section. You do not need to repeat code. So things like these concepts, and many more, of course, I'm not going to go into details, will be introduced in this workshop, and you can use them in other fields. Of course, most importantly, it is fun. Trust me, it's one of the best experiences you will have. It's not tedious, it's easy. Once you pick it up, it becomes a skill that you can always grow upon, and once you finish the workshop, you will have the opportunity to learn another development tool in a matter of weeks. Because once you get the concept, it's very easy to self-teach yourself. Okay. And fun plus money is an epic one, of course. Who would not want this job? What are we going to learn in this workshop? Basically, the tools displayed in front of you, 7 tools, which will make will be the core of our concentration in this workshop. We have HTML, CSS, jQuery, of course, is a branch or a library in JavaScript. We might not go in details in JavaScript, and basically these 3, HTML, CSS, and jQuery, will be what you will use to build your front end. What you will be seeing. It doesn't involve any data. It's just the looks, how you want the colors to be, how the layout, how you want to distribute the layouts, the pages, the navigation. You're not involved with any kind of data. It's just what you see. Now, moving on to the back end. So this is the front end, and this is the back end. First off is Python. Who here knows Python? Python, good. Python is a programming language. And this is the tool that we will be using to code in the back end. Databases, and who has any background about databases here? Okay, so abstractly speaking, databases is basically the house for all the data that you have in your application. Let's say you have about 10,000 customers or people using your service. These 10,000 people, you will need to store their names, telephones, contacts, emails, etc., etc. Where are you going to keep all this information? It's basically going to be stored in databases. I'm not going to go into details now. The stage for databases will come later. And we will introduce, of course, new concepts, both in front end and back end. The concepts will be things that you should stick with for better coding practices to easily maintain your code. The conventions followed by the application, because the framework itself to integrate all of this would be a very big data path. You will have a folder with a lot of files in there, and you want to manage the files with as efficient as possible, maintaining the things easily, finding what you want, where you want it very easily, and that's why we'll get in contact with a lot of conventions that we're going to follow in this development. And finally, once we learn about the skeleton, each individual item, we're going to get in contact with the main framework, which is Django. Django is basically a brand name for the backend. Okay? It basically involves coding with Python and integrating your database or the models that you have to create your backend. The Django is not involved with the front end. Maybe on a very abstract level, and I will explain that later, but basically Django is not involved with front end. This is the backend tool. And through this tool, we will learn step by step how to create our website. Up until this stage, We're going to be working with bits and pieces, knowing how to use the tools and getting comfortable with them. You will be assigned tasks to do them at home just to get your hands dirty with the code. And once we know the concepts that we're going to work with and the tools, we're going to get involved with our project for this semester. Okay? Any questions so far? Okay. Here's a list of some of the websites that were created with Django. Of course, everyone knows Instagram, Bitbucket, the support for Mozilla Firefox, Onion. Onion is one of the best websites. It gets millions of views per post on a monthly basis. And we can demonstrate how these look right now. Let's go for Instagram. So this is an example. Of course, everyone knows Instagram, right? Instagram's website, what you see in front of you. This is the design for the website. Everyone agrees on this, right? The colors, the phone, the data. Actually, the data is not involved with the front end. Why? I want someone to answer this. Why isn't the data kept in the front end? We just answered this to you, so anyone?
What data?
The data that we display in the front end.
Just something in the front end.
No, it's not stored in the front end.
But it's a database.
In the database, exactly. So, for example, this piece of text might be a news column or an introductory column, something that they want to display in the web page. And this piece of text or paragraph is stored not on your computer, of course, or in the browser. It's stored in the internet, in the web server, in the place where we keep this kind of code.
Can anyone think about why is it a bad idea to keep your data on front end? Why do we have data in the back end? Why can't you just store it on the browser on the
Because
computer?
it's stored on the RAM, so it gets lost.
Because what?
It's stored on the RAM, so it's lost.
Okay, think about all
Not
the data.
necessarily.
Okay, you can easily change it.
Date? No.
You can easily change it. That's the answer.
It's not just you can easily change it. Let's think about it. Something like Facebook, for example. If you store the data on the front end, that means it doesn't leave your computer, right? We agreed that the front end is involved with whatever is on your computer and disconnected from the internet. So if we store your data on the computer, do you think that this data would reach someone else? Let's say you want to add someone as a friend on Facebook. Once you add someone as a friend on Facebook, does that mean that without internet, can you add someone on Facebook if you don't have the data? The data won't be available if you don't have a common ground between your computer and your friend's computer. I can clarify this with a simple diagram. So it's not. Let's say this is your computer, and here exists the browser with the data. If we store the data on your computer, your data, okay? So your data is here, but your friend is on this computer, and he wants to add you as a friend or the opposite. So his data is here. Okay? How are we going to communicate this data to this data? And to our application as well. Our application has all the data, right? How is my application going to have this data? Is it possible through the front end alone? Of course not. The front end is what captures the data. What you have over here. Okay? Let's say you fill in a form or you sign up. Once you submit your data, it's not stored over on your computer. Maybe it's stored as in cached data. But this data will have to reach our application and other users. So what exists in the middle here is what we call the internet, of course. And on the internet, once you request to send, it goes to the web server, the server where your application exists. Okay, so this is the server. Now in the server, you store the data in a big chunk that we call the database. I'm not going to discuss databases now, but let's imagine that this is the database where we store everything about everyone. So my data goes here, his data goes here, and this database is basically here, right? Now, if my friend wants to add me on Facebook, he will have to access this server, which is what happens. He cannot access to the front end only, so he sends in a request to the server requesting my details. Now, from the server, my data is over here, so it's connected to the database, right? So I will retrieve my data, it gets back to the server, and it gets sent back to the user. That's how he sees me. The common ground between all the terminals across the internet, for our application, of course, is this web server, which has access to the data and has access to the terminals, of course, because they send the requests. Everyone agrees on this. If we terminate this link, is it possible? Is it possible to transmit the data from one computer to another? Is it possible?
You can't connect to the database.
You cannot connect to anything. So basically, without the backend, without the common ground, you cannot have an application. That's why an application is split into two parts: the front end, which is the layouts, the colors, and everything, and design, and the navigation and everything that you see. The connection happens, and the processing and everything, in fact, happens in the back end. Of course, if you have processing on the front end, what do you think will happen? Heavy processing. It will probably lag. It will probably take some time to process whatever you have. Servers are typically more powerful than our computers. Facebook has what, about how many users? I don't know, billions? If we have the processing concerning all of these people in one machine, what do you think will happen? It will crash, of course. That's why you need the integration between both of them. Okay? And that's what's going to happen. In the first, of course, besides Instagram, there are others. Let's say Bitbucket, for example. These are all developed with Django. So using the same tool, you can just customize whatever you want to service whatever it is that you're servicing. Bitbucket is something like GitHub, if anyone knows GitHub. GitHub is basically a repository where you can store your projects online. Okay? So this is something similar, and many users use this. And so on and so forth. So back to this. We've made a common ground that there are two elements to our application, the front end and the back end, right? These are the main elements. So for the first 3 sessions of the workshop, we're going to be discussing all the front end material. So after 3 sessions, you should be able to create the looks for the application that you want. We're not going to be working on the main project in these stages. We're just going to be learning how to use the tools. So after this, you should be pretty comfortable with how to create the visual effects, the colors, everything that you want as a display without any processing, just a display. Now, starting from sessions 4 and 5, we're going to introduce the backend and Python. Backend introduction, we're going to talk about this diagram in details. And we're going to talk about Python as a programming language. It will be 1 session for the introduction and 1 session for the Python. When we work with Python, we're just going to get familiar with how the syntax works. A syntax is basically the code itself, how we write the code for Python. And once we get comfortable with these two, we're going to start from session 6. It's probably not till 10. It depends. If we want to extend, it can be 12. We're going to start working on the main project. By this stage, you should know the tools that we need. And starting from session 6, you're going to get introduced to new concepts of how to use the tools that we discussed into laying out the application in a neat way, so that you can work with it, maintain it, grow, scale it, without having any trouble. Okay? Everyone with me on this? Any objections? Okay. The prerequisites, as mentioned by Zara, is knowledge of basic programming concepts, but even if you don't have a background in programming, there will be sessions for introducing these basic concepts, and I think one session will be more than enough. And once you get this laid down, we can pick everything from there. The front end work normally doesn't involve heavy coding. It's just a matter of how you present the structure of the looks and the feel of your application. Okay? And that's all. Yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Would the sessions be daily, like from Sunday to Thursday?
No, the sessions will be once a week, Monday, like today, from 5 to 7.
Okay, so we have the session today from 5 to 7.
Today is the first session.
Yeah, so this is just an introductory session, so starting from next week there will be no session during assembly. So today you have a session from 5 to 7, and starting from next week it's going to be every Monday from 5 to 7. Okay.
And does anyone have objections with the timing? From 5 to 7 on Monday? I have to ask you, if it's a huge number, then, okay, it appears that everyone is fine with that. Okay, other questions? Ask, it's an introductory session, you can cover any ambiguity in the session. Hello? So I think I'm doing it.
Okay, just a small requirement. Please try to bring your laptops because it will be easier to actually build your website on your actual
Do
laptop.
we have to install something?
Yeah, we'll leave you all the stuff that you need. Everything is installed on the machines, but it will be easier for you to have everything on your laptop so you can go home and check what you've done.
سؤال ملوش علاقة بال
Oh, yeah, one more thing.
عايز اعمل انستول لاوبانتو على
على ماك ولا بي سي عادي؟
لا PC.
اوكي ممكن تخش على اليوبونتو ويب سايت هتلاقي داونلود لينك
No, I don't want to download it on the laptop. I just want it on flash memory عشان لو عرفني في الاستعمال.
اوكي
ممكن اشتغل عليها ولا
Oh,
انت جايه بالليل؟
يا جماعة بس one more quick.
ايوه بس انا مش معايا دلوقتي مش معايا الموضوع.
اوكي خلاص.
In the weekly sessions, as we agreed, we're going to be learning the new tools, but you have 1 week to do something using this tool so that you can get comfortable with it. Once we finish the stage where we code with the stuff that we're learning in the process, we're going to start developing the project and we're going to abstract anything that relates to what's being covered. So if you don't have good basis in what we cover, you're going to be falling behind once we get to the project itself. So please, after each session, whether we assign a task or not, we're going to probably be assigning tasks, but what if we do not? We want you to do them and try out the code, try out how it works, experiment with it and get the feel for it. And come next week finishing either the tasks or your personal work with it, and you should be fine with it. Approximately 3 to 4 hours per week, or even less, working with it should be more than fine. But please practice. If you don't practice, you're going to fall behind. Because we're going to be discussing many tools, they can mix up. So it's really important that you code on a weekly basis at least. Okay? Thank you.